Hi, Deborah Overberg here again. Today I want to explore two different types of light and see maybe if there are two different types of light. That's my question. And is electromagnetic light the same thing as what I'm calling here prana light? That's what I want to know. Could it be a frequency of a different light? The Vedic theory of consciousness says that the prana is different than the gross physical, and the gross physical light is based on electrons and photons. So I'm suggesting maybe that prana light might be based on the subtle ghost particles. Let's look at how the bodies are considered to be different. And the gross physical sheath is called the Annamaya kosha. And this Anna means food, is one of the translations, and Maya means matter. So this is the matter that is made up of food. You are what you eat. And this is the gross physical body, and of course kosha, sheath. And so this is all the electromagnetic, photonic, everything that's quantifiable is considered part of this body. And really, consensus reality agrees, everybody agrees, with what we see in this picture, that I'm wearing blue jeans and Birkenstocks, and we see it with our two eyes, and the camera detects the same thing. The pranamaya kosha, however, is different. The prana matter is the energy matter, is considered distinct from the gross physical matter. And the prana body here is made up of the chakras, the pranic tube running down the center, and the energy body, the energy field around the body. And the prana body is depicted with artistic renderings, such as shown here, before and after pictures of an energy healing session. And I'd like to show a few other depictions here really quickly. And while we see a lot of similarities in the depictions of a cloudy field or a clear field, they're not all the same, and not everybody does see precisely the same thing, even though there's a high degree of correlation between people. And this is not a new phenomena. Here's a depiction from a 13th century manual where the person on the right has a fiery field throughout his whole body, while those on the left have a fiery field only over their head. So it's not only a current phenomenon. The detectors of the two types of light are different. A few hundred years ago, we learned that the light goes into our two eyes. These are photon detectors. They detect the photons of the electromagnetic spectrum. It was pointed out to me how we see differently with the third eye. I was at a lecture, high vibration, amazing presentation, and my friend nudges me and says, "Do you see the white light around him?" And I said, "No." This was maybe 20 years ago. She says, "Look with your third eye." We see differently from the third eye. So if my photon detectors detect light just fine, why do I need to open my third eye to see the other type of light? So we see the prana with our third eye, and I'm suggesting that the neutrinos go in that third eye as the detector, while the photon detectors go right into our regular eyes, as science agrees. And yet we have to train ourselves to see through our third eye if we're not naturally born that way. And in fact, prana goes out the regular eyes as well, and that's why I am taught to look up at my third eye with my regular eyes, even with my eyes closed, so that the prana goes out the two eyes and into that third eye. This also could have implications for Rupert Sheldrake's sense of being stared at and the evil eye. The internal anatomy is also different. Our photon detectors have a well-known anatomy of rods and cones going to the optic nerve, to the back to the visual cortex in the back of the head. And the anatomy of the prana body is very specific also, consisting of the third eye going into the chakra in the center of the head and connecting in with the pranic tube and the rest of the pranic body. And I'm calling it detecting the prana light, just as we see regular light. And the phenomena are different. I like this example of the Lady of Fatima because it shows that different people see things differently. The three children saw the Lady of Fatima clearly on the hillside and spoke to her as if she was a real person there. And yet I found it interesting that some of the townspeople could see the light on the hillside when she was present, or others could sense it, as we all have our empathic skills. And still there were other people who didn't sense it at all. So this spread of reactions is very typical. Sue Morter gives us another great example here. She describes lighting up in an ashram filled with 300 people. And she describes it like this: the skies opened up, I had a bird's eye view. I was engulfed in light, 10 times brighter than a sunny day in the desert. I was a ray of light, light that was the vibratory frequency of love. Now, none of the other 300 people saw that light, except for her guru. Now, those 300 people, if it was a regular electromagnetic light, even if you turn on a light bulb and your eyes are closed in the day, you can recognize that light will shine through the very thin eyelids. But her guru saw it because she saw it with her third eye. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's a higher frequency. And is it a higher frequency on the electromagnetic spectrum, which is where I tend to go first as well. And yet looking at that spectrum, on the low end is non-ionizing frequencies, and then we move into ionizing frequencies, which are dangerous. The ionizing means it causes damage in our bodies, and up to X-rays, we know, and radioactive waste and gamma rays at the higher frequencies, which we know causes our DNA to mutate. So does it suddenly jump to a vibratory frequency of love? That just doesn't make sense to me. And what makes more sense is maybe it's a frequency of a higher substance, such as in these higher sheaths we've been looking at. So it's not a higher frequency, but it's a frequency of a higher substance, a finer substance. And I just want to be very clear that the instrumentation that we use detects quantities on the electromagnetic spectrum, the photons, electricity, magnetism, etc. And they're not detecting that vibratory frequency of love, not directly in any case. So other people have suggested that maybe the subtle bodies are simply lower amplitudes, a lower level of the electromagnetic frequencies. And again, our instrumentation is getting better, and our scientists more clever at devising the experiments. And certainly noise also hints at some shifts in the field. However, the Indo-Tibetan perspective says that the cause is on these finer sheaths, the more refined layers, and then it works its way down to the physical where it shows up on the instrumentation. And other people have suggested scalar waves, and that might be involved in this equipment that looks at the chakras, meridians, and the field itself. So there's much more to this story that I'd like to know. That's for another time. For now, though, let's stick to our question on, is the prana light different from the electromagnetic light? And we saw that there are differences between the two types of phenomena. The detectors are different, the internal anatomy is different, the bodies are different, and so is the phenomena. And the descriptions of the phenomena are different. So could it be a frequency of a different type of light? Not just based on the electron and photon, but maybe even the ghost particle. That's what I want to know.